Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Rmalti RM001. This watch is available from Rmalti Global Store on AliExpress for €240. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this white cardboard outer box. This is the watch box itself, vinyl coated, stitching around the perimeter, hinge lid, and the interior is fully upholstered with a white velour fabric to a good standard. The watch sits in the base on a padded pillow cushion, as one would expect, which is also fully upholstered with a velour fabric. So nice presentation and good quality watch box, bearing in mind it's a low tier price point piece at €240. With regards to other items, one only gets this cardboard owner's instruction manual, reference number of the piece is filled in and also the date of purchase, and there's a QR code you can scan to activate the 12-month international warranty. So disappointing, there's no owner's instruction manual or other accessories with the watch, bearing in mind it's €240. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Rmalti RM001. The watch is clearly an homage to the Grand Seiko Heritage, a watch I've previously reviewed. So the RM001 is available with a plethora of dial options. This is a new release version, which is their bamboo dial version, and the bamboo dial versions of the RM001 are available in 3 dial colour options, grey, blue and green respectively. Of those 3 bamboo dial options, this grey version is my personal favourite. So the vertical lines on the bamboo dial are very aesthetically pleasing, and they contrast very well with the silver applied indices and the silver Grand Seiko style dolphin hands. So with regards to the dimensions, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a 47.5mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 11.9mm and a lug width of 22mm. The bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push clasp. Now, I'm going to be critical of the clasp because I think Rmalti have made a mistake here by copying Pagani design. If you look at the font of Rmalti design, you can see it's clearly a copy of Pagani design. And this doesn't work very well because it's engraved longitudinally. Now, the watch brand is Rmalti, it's not Rmalti design, and they should have deleted design and simply engraved Rmalti. I think Rmalti would have looked better if they engraved it horizontally rather than longitudinally on the clasp as per Pagani design. Now, the other thing I dislike is if you look at the applied Rmalti brand logo, which is done to a very good standard, the mirror polishing is very good. I like the text and the font for the logo, but they should have used the same font on the dial on the applied logo as is engraved on the clasp. But if you look at the clasp, you can see it's a different font. It's actually like Porsche font, which is used by Pagani design, as I've detailed. So they really should be using the same font on the dial and also on the clasp for continuity. Now, with regards to the clasp itself, in terms of finishing, beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel, so the brushed satin finishing is high grade, the quality of the engraving is high grade, nice mirror polished bevel to the edge of it. I'd prefer to see a heavier gauge of 316L grade stainless steel used, although it is finished to a good standard, no sharp edges, no burrs, and we don't have sharp corners. Now, as always, I'm going to be critical of it only having 3 micro adjustment holes. I would like to see Rmalti increase the length of the clasp so we could have 4 micro adjustment holes, because the bracelet only has full size links. There are no half links either side of the clasp, and therefore it's hard to get the perfect fit with only 3 micro adjustment holes. On a positive note, I'm pleased to see them use screw pins rather than the cost-cutting measure of push pins in the bracelet. So the bracelet is very well made. There's just room for improvement with regards to the thickness of the clasp and also the length, and 4 micro adjustment holes. 2-button push triggers have a nice firm resistance. Solid mill 316L grade stainless steel interior. Finished to a good standard, brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks. So the finishing to the interior of the solid mill clasp is very good, and I really like the quality of the polishing and also the brushed satin finishing to the clasp on the interior and also the exterior. It snaps shut with a nice positive click, so it's a very well executed 2-button push clasp. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver applied indices and the silver mirror polished dolphin hands, which are Grand Seiko style. The hands are correctly proportioned. The minute hand extends to nearly the chapter ring, which is good, and also the second hand is long enough to nearly extend to the white minute ticks. The chapter ring is clearly legible, the white minute ticks contrasting with the grey chapter ring, and I really like the bamboo dial because it has like a sunburst finish to the vertical stripes, and I like the way the vertical stripes catch the light. It's very dark charcoal or anthracite grey, and I think it's very aesthetically pleasing the way it changes from an almost black colour in low light conditions to a more anthracite colour in direct light. The date complication is framed in silver, and we've got a white date wheel with black Arabic numerals. So I'm just going to move the minute hand out of the way to show it to you better. So as you can see, nicely proportioned date window. The mirror polishing to the framing is good, and the proportions of the Arabic numerals on the white date wheel are very good. So legibility is good, although there is a slight shadow generated by the tall frame. Now I appreciate they've tried to replicate or copy. This is an homage to the Grand Seiko heritage, so they've used the same style of silver framing, but I think they've recessed the frame too much. For example, it's got depth, so therefore there is a shadow around the date wheel. Had they made the framing lower profile, that would have reduced the shadow on the date wheel and therefore improved the legibility. I also think they could have made the date wheel black with white Arabic numerals, and that would contrast better, because by using white for the date wheel, it creates a shadow around the edge inside the frame. So there is room for improvement. They could make the framing lower profile to reduce the shadow. But having said that, the proportions of the applied indices, the dolphin hands, and also the framing is very good. I like this silver applied Rmalti logo at 12 o'clock, and I like the fact it just has automatic in text at the 6 o'clock position, so it's not over branded with unnecessary text or specifications such as 100 meters. We just have Rmalti and automatic, just the right amount of information. So let's test the screw down crown execution. I'm just going to screw it back down again and test it. Right, so unscrewing it, it doesn't feel silky smooth. It feels smooth, it's okay, but there is room for improvement on the machining of the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Coin edge finished, mirror polished domed cap, and we've got it embossed with the Rmalti emblem. Now I think they could improve upon the embossed emblem because it doesn't actually relate to Rmalti. It would look better if they used an R, for example, for Rmalti. It is finished to a good standard, but I don't like the emblem because it's not engraved on the clasp and it's not on the dial. And again, we don't have the continuity because the text on the dial in the Rmalti font is different to the Pagani designed Porsche font used on the clasp. So they need to improve on the continuity. I think an R logo would look better, but it is finished to an acceptable standard. So unscrewing it, it feels okay, but it doesn't feel silky smooth. They could improve the quality of it. So it's powered by the NH35A automatic. In the first position it's the manual wind position, so one can manually wind the NH35A to top it up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. Nice firm resistance to it, feels smooth to manually wind it. The screw down crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, which is good specification for a daily wear piece. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. Rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the quick set complication as one would expect. It's characteristic of the NH35A, has a nice positive click, and I really like the quick set complication of the 35A because each day of the month clicks over with a nice satisfying click. Absolute pleasure to set the date. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, you can see I've now stopped it dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second by hacking the 35A. Nice firm resistance to the 35A, it feels smooth clockwise and anti-clockwise, no back play as per the Miyota 8215, and I like the lack of the back play. There's an immediate response when one rotates the crown clockwise or anti-clockwise. There's an immediate response from the minute hand, so an absolute pleasure to set the time. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. So let's test screwing it back down. Now it does pick up immediately. There is a good interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So the interface of the threads is good, but it just doesn't feel silky smooth. One can feel some friction, so I think they could improve upon it, although it does work okay. Right, so I'll show you the case back. Screw down exhibition case back glazed with mineral crystal. The stainless steel portion of the case back is finished to a good standard. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the inner section, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the circumference. Nice milled slots, no sharp edges, no burrs. The screw down exhibition case back provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, which is good specification, and it's also engraved to a high standard with the reference number and the specification around the circumference. Low profile, very flat, very comfortable to wear against the wrist for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, and it does a good job of displaying the undecorated movement, the NH35A, so nice to get an exhibition case back at this price point. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the case, very well finished, and they are brushed satin finished, no sharp edges, no burrs, and the slots for the spring bars are also large enough to get a spring bar tool in. So they've done a good job of the end links, flawless mirror polishing to the underside of the case, no sharp edges to the underside of the flanks. So very well finished head of the piece. Now with regards to the finishing, this is a Grand Seiko Heritage Homage. Now it's clearly not Grand Seiko Zaratsu level polishing. I've previously reviewed 2 Grand Seiko pieces, so I'm very well familiar with the Zaratsu case polishing. This does do a good job of replicating it. It does look similar in terms of the case profile to the Grand Seiko Heritage, but the quality of the brushed satin finishing and the quality to the mirror polishing to the top edge of the case, which marks the transition between the top edge of the lugs and the flanks, is not as good as the Zaratsu case polishing as one would expect. But however, we're not looking at a €3,000 Grand Seiko Heritage. One has to appreciate this is €240. It's a low tier piece. It is finished to a good standard, although there is room for improvement. I like they've mirror polished in between the lugs, and also like the mirror polishing to the edge, the bevel on the top edge of the case. Using holes in the lugs is good because it means it's easy to remove a strap. For example, if you're using a leather strap or rubber strap without quick release spring bars, it's nice to have the holes in the lugs. It makes removing the strap very easy if the bracelet isn't your personal taste. Now, looking closely at the end links, we can see there is room for improvement. If you look very closely at the mirror polish center sections to the center links, there is some rough edges to it, so they can improve upon the quality of the finishing to the end links. One has to appreciate this is €240. We're not looking at a €100 Pagani design. This should have flawless polishing and brushed satin finishing to the end links. The end links are a good tight fit to the case. The profiles do fit the head of the piece very well. Brushed satin finishing to the bracelet is good. Now there is some play, and this is disappointing because we're not looking at a bracelet with push pins. This has screw pins, and I would expect there to be less play and slack in the links because, as you can see, each of the links does have some extra play in them, laterally, side to side, and also up and down play, and I'm just going to demonstrate it. If you look closely now, you can see we have play in all directions. So that indicates the screw pins aren't a very tight fit going through the center links. They could tighten up the tolerances and remove that play. Now it doesn't feel a sloppy bracelet. It's not as loose and rattly as a Pagani design PD1661 bracelet, for example. But however, bearing in mind it uses screw pins rather than push pins, I think it's unacceptable to have that level of play. And as I've discussed, this is €240, and really this is the kind of play one would expect in a low tier piece costing circa €100. At €240, Rmalti really need to tighten up the tolerances. On a positive note, the mirror polishing to the flanks is done to a flawless standard. No sharp edges, no burrs to the edges, and no sharp edges or burrs to the underside of the bracelet, which is brushed satin finished throughout. It doesn't pull arm hairs, very comfortable, and it does articulate very well. It doesn't have stiff links, and they do articulate very smoothly. Now the male end links do extend the effective lug-to-lug measurement, and I would say to you, although this is a 40mm, it does wear very long on the wrist. It does wear longer than the 47.5 would suggest. They could improve this by using female pivoted end links, but however, I appreciate this is an homage to the Grand Seiko Heritage, which also uses male end links, and they've tried to copy the style of the Heritage end links, which is fair enough. 22 to 18. Personally, I would prefer to see a 20 to 16 taper, but again, they're trying to make it look like a Grand Seiko Heritage, which 22 to 18 does give that look. So just a shame about the play in the links, as you can see, which is significant. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shots, and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, but however, I have moved it from position 1 to position 3 on the micro. I've moved it from position 3 to position 1 on the micro adjustments to slightly shorten it, and even doing so I can easily slip an index finger underneath the braces and clasp. So on full extension this will fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. If you have a larger wrist, you'll have no worries whatsoever, this will fit you. So as you can see, the proportions are excellent. 40mm head of the piece, 47.5 is close to the sweet spot, the perfect lug-to-lug measurement of 48, so 47.5 is a good choice. One could argue they've made the correct choice by using 22 tapering down to 18 because the bracelet does balance the 40mm head of the piece very well, but however I think a 20 to 16 taper would look better. 22 to 18 is okay, but 20 to 16 really does suit a 40mm head of the piece better. Now the thing I most like about it is a low profile piece, bearing in mind it's NH35A powered. With a 35A one can often expect it to be in excess of 12mm, often 35A powered pieces are 13mm. This is only 11.9 and bear in mind it has an exhibition case back which does add some thickness to it. 11.9 is very good, so it's a very comfortable, well balanced and wearable daily wear piece. And I really like the bamboo dial which changes colour in the light from a charcoal grey to an anthracite, and it's nice the way the vertical lines in the bamboo dial catch the light and they contrast very well with the silver applied Rmalti logo and the silver applied indices and the dolphin hands. Now one detail I really like, and it's notable in the light, is the capped second hand, and this is something that very few brands do within the low tier, especially at €240. San Martin used to use capped second hands, and I really like the centre section of the capped second hand because the silver mirror polished cap catches the light and it looks very aesthetically pleasing rather than having a dimple in the centre of the second hand. So Rmalti deserve credit because they've done a very good job of finishing the handset. They have nice mirror polished facets to them and a nice groove in the centre of the hour and minute hand which complements the applied indices which also have grooves in them. So the applied indices and the hands are very well finished. Very good looking piece. I like the slight bevel on the edge of the flat sapphire crystal, and they've made the correct decision by using a flat sapphire crystal rather than using a double dome sapphire crystal because it does reduce the thickness down to 11.9. So comfortable piece to wear for long periods of time such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Does feel balanced. Now it is heavy with all the links, 165 grams. Now bear in mind if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist you're going to be removing 4 to 5 links and that will reduce it to circa 150 grams, but with all the links as you can see 165 grams is heavy for a 40mm head of the piece. The heft is noticeable, and again they could have reduced the heft had they used a 20 to 16 versus 22 to 18 taper. If they'd used 20 to 16 it would reduce the heft to below 150 and that would have made it a more balanced and also comfortable piece to wear. So really I would say it's best suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches rather than collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7. If they used 20 to 16 then yes it would have been more suitable for a 6 to 7 inch wrist, but this is 40. It's a shame they didn't make this in a 36 or 37mm version to suit collectors with a 6 to 7 inch wrist because at 40 with a wide bracelet it really does need to be worn by a 7 to 8 inch wrist. Right, so there's no loom, so we won't do a loom test. So I'll move on to the movement. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A automatic. It's made in Malaysia, reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is for complications. The quick set date complication works very well, as I've demonstrated. 40-hour power reserve is very good. And the stated accuracy of the 35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day. So a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Rmalti are well regulating the 35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day, which is well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy, and I think it's perfectly acceptable from a 35A. So the accuracy is good, it's reliable, it's well proven, and the 35A is the correct choice for this piece. And although it's undecorated and boring to look at through the exhibition case back, I do like the reliability of it, and it is quieter than a Miyota 8215 or 8315, which are the other options they could have used at this price point. So good choice of movement, and I think the 35A is very good. I like everything about it, no negatives to it. Really the only negative to the watch is the screw down crown. It's not silky smooth, so they need to improve upon that. And the other negative is the clasp. They need to extend it and have 4 micro adjustment links, or alternatively add half links either side of the clasp. So the other thing they need to tighten up is the play, because we do have some longitudinal, lateral and also up and down play in each of the links, as you can see. Right, so lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So this is €240. I consider it to be good quality and good value at €240, but however this does face some stiff competition at €240 from San Martin. For example, the SN020G, which I've previously reviewed several versions of, is a credible alternative. And bear in mind, this is powered by the NH35A. It's not PT5000 powered or YN55A powered. So I would say to you, if you're considering this at €240, you will also be considering the San Martin SN021G and also the SN020G. So really, Rmalti need to improve upon the quality of the bracelet, because the way I would describe the quality of this piece overall is it's a level above Pagani design. This is a better quality watch than the PD1692. The bracelet is better finished and better quality, and also the clasp is better finished and better quality, but it's a level below San Martin. So really, Rmalti are positioning themselves within the low tier between Pagani design and San Martin. It's a level above Pagani design and a level below San Martin. So something to bear in mind. Now, with a San Martin, for example, and also I'll apply this to Pagani design, even on the PD1692, which is circa €100. A Pagani design screw-down crown is silky smooth. A San Martin screw-down crown is silky smooth. And really, Rmalti being between those two within the low tier, they need to get the screw-down crown silky smooth. They also need to tighten up the bracelet to San Martin levels. And I think they also need to improve the clasp to San Martin level in order to be competitive at €240. So it's good quality and good value rather than being excellent quality and excellent value. I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the shortcomings and the areas which are needed to be improved upon. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Rmalti RM001. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.